folks, this is all brand new. My name's Andrew. I'm joined with my good mate Cal. This is
How
going
are
to
we?
be a start of a new show. As you might tell, we are Clan fans. You might see some of Cal's posting on Twitter, and my used to be able to allow to post on Twitter. But we have decided to take our talents in talking Clan to a new audience. So this is the start of the 1T talk show. As I said, I'm Andrew. This is Cal, and we're gonna just talk Clan on this show. We're gonna maybe branch out, talk NHL because we both support NHL teams. Love the game of hockey in general, So we'll branch out. But as we're starting tonight, we're gonna start with the bread and butter, which is the Glasgow Clan. We're going to start with the signings recently made. I mean, Cal, it's only been just over a month since the end of the playoffs, and we've already made 12 signings. It's a bit ridiculous that we've started so early.
The most in the league so far is a very unusual territory for the Clan, that's for sure.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, it's unlike us, but I suppose this is maybe a positive thing, and we shouldn't be too negative about the fact we're getting our business done early. Yeah, we'll start with the news we already knew is that Steven Saigo and Devin Sidoroff were announced by the club that they would be returning. They are obviously alternate captain, and Saigo obviously took captaincy while Sid was injured. Those kind of early contracts, Cal, we've seen them before where players sign up for the next season. We've seen the negative side of that where the coach, if it is a new coach, then goes, actually, I like what you've done there, my director of hockey, but that's not where I'm leaning. So, what was your thoughts on the re-signings of these two?
We've definitely been burned by signings like that in the past, but I feel like it's not particularly always been this case where you've had coaches coming and going as often as we have in recent years. But I think having the captain and assistant captain back as your sort of continuity pieces is definitely good for this. Is it's still an assistant coach now, head coach Mike Sarant. So you're at least getting someone who still knows the players and still got good hockey out of them. So
Yeah, definitely. Mike Sarant. Then we knew obviously he would take the mantle after the club announced it for this upcoming season, and the signings have been made off the back of that. Obviously, Mike, after Corey Nielsen's departure on the 27th of January, we asked Mike to step into the breach and take the reins. Cal, it's always been difficult because we've seen some of these where the coach is left, usually not for great circumstances attached to it. In this case, mutually agreed was the club statement. But Mike Sarant taking the lead. A lot of people maybe talking about other options when it came to the end of the season after the brilliant run in the playoffs. Do you look elsewhere? Do you stay in-house? I think if I'm looking at it, it ends up being 13 wins in regulation and overtime, 9 losses in regulation and 4 overtime losses. So the record as a whole is more losses than wins, but you can definitely make the argument, and this is the argument that I've been leaning on, is that we've seen some of the better sides of Sarant's coaching. We've seen players deciding to, find that extra gear. We've seen a lot more buy-in and dig from these players going down the stretch, and that's the kind of upside that we're banking on for this upcoming season.
I definitely feel in terms of the wins, when Sarant took the role, the wins that we did get seemed to be the important ones rather than just grinding out wins altogether. When it came down to the important games, we did get the results, and we did end up getting to the playoff weekend, which is an achievement in itself. He did it with a team that wasn't his. He made 1-2 signings, maybe max, and it made an impact straight away, which was a huge difference that we're not used to, especially that late into the season as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're touching on that, there was also bare bonesness added to that when you're going down the stretch. I mean, we talk about these players buying in, and we see it no worse off than Sidorov having his hand restructured, to say it nicely, blocking a shot. You want your captain to be blocking shots if you've got, a plan to get to the postseason, like the club and the coaches and all the players were saying. So, yeah, I to be honest, I'm happy with Mike coming back. I think it feels like a new direction, whilst also, as you've stated before, with Sid and Saigo coming back, keeping that continuity, because we've seen it so many years in the past now in the Elite League, Cal, that teams that seem to keep the best parts, their core, continue to have success year in, year out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that they've gone about the re-signing of Sarant as well is they've kind of gone back to like fundamentals, and they've thought, how can we build around him and support him? A lot of that obviously comes in with the new director of hockey and your assistant coaches. We'll touch on that later, but I feel like the way they've gone about it now is like, okay, we can't just keep this meat grinder of different leadership groups and coaches coming and going every year after we don't get the result we want. And I think there's I say we have it all the time where we get optimistic at the start of the season, but I feel like this time we seem to be almost ahead of the game. We're actually being a bit more professional about things, which is nice to see.
Definitely, yeah. It's good to talk about positive clan news, positive clan results, especially off the back of a history-making playoff weekend appearance. Let's go back to obviously we talked about Devin Sidoroff and Steven Seigel re-signing. I mean, we talk about Sid. It was strange because when he was back fit before he got injured, or when he was firing before he got injured under Mike, there was extra zip in his game, but also it's important to point out that zip, in my opinion, was maybe lacking throughout the season. You can talk about a number of things, lines being bounced about. I'm hoping that we'll see, a positive, structure around the captain, giving him the right ice time, the right partnerships in the upcoming season, which I'm sure we're going to have to look at in terms of signings. Because looking at Devin's stats, I mean, from his first season in purple with the Clan, I mean, 49 points, just above point per game. Last season, obviously, a drop off in point per game closeness, if you want to call it that. But obviously, that injury hampered his season.
Yep.
But we've seen the best parts of Devin in purple. It's just about getting that, that 9 out of 10 performance, consistently to come out more often, Cal.
I think the main thing with his stats for me is it's came down to the line inconsistencies that we had this season. We were constantly chopping and changing, and I felt like Sidorov was a rather large victim of that. Never was able to get settled, but the few times where we did have a settled line with him on it, we did see the product that we could get. There was the 4-goal game versus Dundee. That was a particular highlight for, I imagine, most people's seasons. Again, he is the captain. He does always lead. He's in with the physical side of the game as well. I think if we can just get him settled on a line with consistent players, I think we will see a return to the first season of form.
That is the hope that we want from Devon, because we've seen it in purple, as you said. That game against Dundee was a real, showcase of his ability. Also, as we said, Steven Seigel coming back. Where you've touched on the fact that Sid was being bounced about, that wasn't really the case for Steven for the majority of the season. He was had his stalwart beside him, Michele Teppo, who also resigned, but we'll stick on with Seigel. We've seen a very good first season in purple for Sykes, and bringing him back, keeping him as the alternate captain, I thought was definitely the right option at that point in time. We're now at a point where Steven Sykes will be 36 by the time the puck drops for the new season. Where you've dropped from 33 points to 23 points, is this a natural drop off? Is that maybe the difference in partnership to defensive partners throughout his time in purple? Moving from Simon Dupuis to Michele Teppo. Is this something you might see an uptick in points? Is it something that you're maybe going to just see a regression as it is, the natural passage of time happens? It's difficult to tell with size. Cal, what's your opinion?
I think, again, it's kind of, as I said with Sidorov, a victim of circumstance. again, a lot of the times of the season, as a whole, like goal scoring, point scoring was an issue for the whole team, and I feel like Saigo had to sort of sacrifice that side of his game a little bit. He took up the captaincy when Sidorov picked up his rather bad hand injury, and he picked up the captaincy, and I thought he stepped up a bit more on the physical side of things. He was having to play more responsible, being the one that had to sort of lead by example. I think he does a lot more of those sort of leadership things. I think he's more like the quiet voice in the background, which maybe you don't see, you don't see it first, but then upon a closer look, you see, okay, this guy is actually doing the right things, but he's letting everybody else shine rather than him being in the spotlight. I think I would expect that going into next season, you'd likely see Saigo and Teppo as your sort of second pair D. So I don't think they'll get the same first line minutes, but I would like to see. I think we'll get a sort. I think I'd like to expect a sort of similar season from Saigo.
Yeah, I think with our signing of Juho Rautanen, I think it's an interesting one to just try and decipher the puzzle of our decor and what it's going to end up being, because as we'll get into with Juho, that's a very good signing in my opinion. But it also shakes up the pack as to what you thought was a good defensive pairing, and definitely a nailed on first line D pair as in terms of last year's team, in my opinion, to what you might be looking at this season ahead. Moving into what was our kind of major talking points as the season finished. I mean, we had two brilliant seasons, one shorter than the other with circumstance of arrival, but definitely one of the major stars in recent seasons in the clan, in my opinion, Tristan Langen. My God, I remember in pre-season when he came in and it was his debut, thinking, and it's high praise, but I remember watching Matt Keith's first game at the clan during pre-season, and he just was able to glide with the puck. He looked so, I don't want to say professional because everyone's a professional, but he just looked a class above what I had seen previously. And just the way that Langen just kind of instantly took okay, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be the it player this season role, in my opinion, was just stunning. And it's really good that we managed to attract that talent. And also, as we know now, Cal, keep him. Tristan Langen obviously re-signing for the upcoming season. I think we all had this one almost on our Christmas list, birthday lists, all these kind of things. Cal, Langen, definitely the first one I wanted back.
For sure. That just those first couple of preseason games into the first couple of cup and league games, the form he was on straight away, coming in with a shortened preseason as well. He was a late addition to the roster during preseason. Just that immediate form was something that we just aren't used to getting out straight away out the door. I think he had like 2 goals and an assist in his first game, I think it was. And it just didn't slow down, which was something that just we've been solely lacking in for a good couple of seasons now. And I think if we can get another couple of guys with similar caliber, could have a good few line combinations to come, especially with Langen on it.
Yeah, with Tristan Langen, it was one that even I had forgotten about. That I had to put it in with the stats at the end of the Orlando Solar stint in the East Coast League, that the difference in the 72 game stint to like a 54 game season, or the jumping from the American hectic schedule to the British schedule. And I'm not saying that the British travel and everything that comes with it is easy, but when you compare the dumpster fire that the East Coast League was this season to where he is now, like, he can hack it for those extended seasons. I mean, in the point production he had in Orlando was definitely up there, and it continued with us this season. So yeah, definitely a player that, it's like if you're playing NHL and it's like your franchise mode, and it's like, oh yes, you're gonna sell X amount of jerseys for this player because he's your star. Lang is definitely one of those guys.
100%.
It gets the bums and seats, to say the phrase there. But also, I think if you're talking the whole season, Langen was unbelievable. But in the stretch, one of the other major players that took the spotlight was Mick Messner. I think we've seen it again. This was almost a retooling from Mike when he came in, and bringing in Mick. Again, another player that just as soon as he pulled on the purple was already firing. I mean, it's a 17-game stint, 12 points. You can see in his numbers previously that the seasons have been strange. I mean, they jumped between Utah and obviously Slovakia before coming to the Clan, but when he had that settled 72 games with Utah the season before, the point production was definitely there. Strange how it's jumped from assists primarily with Utah to goals, but
To go,
when
yeah,
he's got that shot, I mean, he is one of the heaviest wrist shots I've seen in the Clan colours.
he's one of the heaviest wrist shots I think I've ever seen. I think
It's just to
definitely.
jump in.
Sorry.
Just looking at the plus minuses, and it was one thing I was looking at with the ECHL. Such a strange league. Just again, this is going to be the bad mouthing the East Coast League part of the episode, but the the stats comparison from the East Coast with Tristan, I think it's something like 55 penalty minutes from when just looking back at it. What happened to these guys in the East Coast League? Honestly, guys who are your playmakers just being forced to take penalty minutes. But yeah, sorry, I just something against the East Coast League. To be perfectly honest, Cal, I don't like it.
No, it's a fair comparison, especially how they treat their players on occasion as well. It's that's
Moving
a
on,
whole
moving
story in
on.
itself. Yeah, no, I think I mean, just the way that he came into the team, and it was a time where we were crying out for to just hitting the net in any way, shape, or form. We just could not find the net, and Messner came in, and again that it was wrist shot after wrist shot from almost every area of the ice, and the puck did just find the net, which definitely a huge driving factor in how we got ourselves to the playoffs. That's for sure. And I think if I was to pick anybody that maybe would sneak their way into gaining perhaps an assistant captaincy for next season, I think Messner would maybe be my pick. He was the captain for Utah before leaving there again due to the rumored lockout. He was previously an assistant there. He's also been an assistant NCAA level, so he's kind of been a reliable leader so all throughout his short professional career and also his junior career as well. So I think if I wouldn't be shocked to see him receive the A next season. That's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, he is, as you've said, he has had those roles previously. And again, this is the thing with continuity is that you have players who have been here. You're not ripping up a leadership group. You're not planting new roots every season. You've got players that you can, even if you want to shuffle the pack and the whole thing, like Saigo was a captain in stages like that, you have guys that can fill in the roles where necessary. Cal, we're almost as of recording a week past the signing spree that the Clan made, announcing the return of Rob Lakovic, Mikhail Tepo, and Raylan Schwartz. These are players where it's a strange one because at the time after the whole build up the Clan did and the Sidorov gift that will now be used from now until the end of time, and the Murph interview again, why there was no sort of a late nominee, not late nomination for some sort of acting award for both of them. I don't know, but you have the announcement of Rob Lakovic after this whole build up, and you go, okay, Clan,
We need a
and I
Brits. We need the
suppose,
Brits.
yeah, we need the Brits, yeah. So it was okay. You bring back Mikhail Tepo next, which there was a lot of talk that wouldn't be happening, which is strange, but nice surprise from the Clan, I suppose. And Raylan Schwartz. So the main thing I would take from these, Cal, is they're not first liners. I think we've already kind of spoken about this with Tepo and Saigo. I don't think that can be your D1 line.
Yep.
I think Schwartz has played higher than he's had to or should have had to play in his entirety of his time at the Clan. But has proved himself.
I think I've been saying that since pre-season of year one. Corey Nielsen that he was originally intended to be a third line player, and signings fell through the floor that first year, which did not help us.
Yeah, having to be elevated and playing higher role minutes. I would say that he has handled that extra responsibility or pressure, whatever you want to call it. We've seen that he takes up big minutes,
Absolutely.
clutch minutes. And the only thing, and I say this, and this is going to sound like I'm one of these, like, they're finished as soon as they hit 30, kind of sit on the bench and shout at they're getting too old, these awful kind of people. From one side, yes, you're talking about Schwartz, he's 36, Lacko, he's also 36, Teppel's 33. These are all guys at the tail end of their career, but the upside is been here already and loads of experience. So when you do make new signings, these are the guys you want to pair them with, at least through pre-season, get that togetherness ready for the actual season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, like the character of these guys is a pretty big one as well. Like all three of them, I would definitely say are like when they're on the ice, even when they're off the ice, are like professionals. Like these guys live and breathe for the sport. They live and breathe for the puck. They're all like extremely hardworking players. Teppo was very, very responsible. You get Schwartz, who's an extremely hard worker. And then Lacko is just your all-round dependable guy. He's an incredible penalty killer. He's handy on all of these situations. He must be up there for some of the most short-handed goals in Clan history at this rate. The amount he's scored over a couple of years he's been here.
Yeah, I mean, when Lacko came in, he was a player that definitely didn't feel like it was too late in his career. I think it back to when Peaks came in at the Clan just after leaving Belfast. You went, this is actually a really good, shrewd signing for Brit Pack players. I mean, we're going to talk about the Brit Pack as a whole, but at the time, I was a bit let down by the whole build-up. But in hindsight, you kind of think, well, to be fair, leadership, the adjustments that you're going to need, hopefully, when you do make those big, flashy signings from, I don't know, Swedish leagues or Dell, or when you're looking at like the Erstliga or sort of those kind of range who don't have experience in the elite league, that these guys come in and go, it's going to be a tough trip when you're going to Guildford away. You need to watch I was going to say you need to watch the board at the storm shelter, but that's going to change.
Oh well, it's now.
It's no longer a thing.
You're going to need to watch that big ice pad.
Yeah, the big ice pack for a big club all of a sudden. But let's not slaughter the Storm in our first episode. We've already slaughtered the East Coast League, so let's keep it at one entity we're going to slaughter per episode. But these, as I said, jumping back, these are the guys you want to have around these newcomers.
Absolutely.
To get them adjusted to the club and the league. Leaning off of the Lacko chat, Cal, the Brit Pack, the Brit Pack has slowly started to form. There was a lot of talk about everybody's favourites, Joe Hazeldine, Cade Nielsen, but the Clan have jumped in early and announced the return of Alex Forbes, obviously Lacko, AMK. Let's talk about Austin Mitchell-King, Cal. A player that last season I thought this will be a sink or swim year for him, deciding this first time in the Elite League proper for a consistent run of games. And I think he's really passed those tests for a first year Brit in the Elite League. I thought he really impressed me, Cal.
I thought he was honestly underutilized by both the coaches. If I was honest, I every time he was on the ice, I thought he was working hard for it. He was making good plays, and he was actually carving out quite a lot of chances. And I felt like if he just got that bit more ice time, and maybe he got a bit more trust from the coaches, then he might have. He might have even kicked on and been even better. But again, I'm a big fan of his game. Real hard worker. There was a lot of people from when he was playing in the NIHL saying that, oh yeah, this guy will come up, he'll work, and he's ready. And I safe to say after that season, I would agree. I would like to see him get more ice time going into this coming season, and I think if we get this right, he could be here for a while, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Just touching on those NIHL numbers. I mean, he had 39 points and 44 for Peterborough before signing for the Clan. It's always going to be difficult to tell when you see these guys jump from the NIHL to the Elite League with the change and the imports limits and all that, everything that comes with the professional side of British hockey. But for me, I mean, almost 10 points in regular season for a first time round. I think he got an assist in the playoffs. I think so. A whole season, 10 points, and take that in a first year for him. And happy that we have had him re-signed, especially with the landscape of the Brit Pack across the Elite League changing so drastically. It's going to be difficult or different as a whole to see and envision teams and what Brits are staying where. Cal. So I think having the guys you can rely on, Lacko, Forbesy, and EMK signed early is a big positive.
Yeah, I think the movement of the Brits across the league as a whole was definitely a worry that was sitting on Clan fans' minds, especially as there was rumours that Austin Mitchell King was possibly going to be leaving the Clan. I don't know where they came from personally, but those rumours were there. There was talks that Lakovic was possibly leaving as well. You've had your talks of Cade Nielsen leaving, your talks of your Hazeldines leaving. This morning, you've had Lucas Bryan also left. So I feel like it was a rather large worry for Clan fans as a whole, but the fact that we now have these guys locked in so far as your Britpack, definitely feeling rather comfortable as things now. Get a couple more guys in here. There's obviously there's rumors which we'll discuss later on that, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with the Britpack so far. That's for sure.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I think with an extra piece or two, depending on where the cards fall for other clubs, will be dictated in a number of weeks as the rest of the teams figure out what they're doing, what directions are heading. Lots of questions. I mean, you can think back to last season with Lucas Bryan at the Clan. Is what does the long term landscape of your Brit Pack look like if you're going to lean the goaltending way the way that Cardiff has for the last number of years with Bouncy and leaning on Bouncy. There was maybe an argument if Bryan could have made steps this season that you could have maybe had that argument outright this year. Things haven't played out that way. But that's just a number of the dominoes that are going to fall. Bryan moves, as we've said, Hazeldine, Nielsen. I mean, it's more of a big plus to our recruitment last year. I'm giving faith to these lads that they can develop at the Clan. Whether they're then going to move on, who knows? Time will tell. But yeah, it's definitely a positive in AMK's case. But let's move on to the next major story, which was Juho Rautanen. That was a surprise for me, Cal. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if I was just off Twitter that day and hadn't been looking, or it was just a surprise as a whole. But looking at the CV, wow, that's a good signing for the Clan.
For one, it's like I wasn't expecting any new signings at all. That's for sure. Like across the league, you don't see many, if any, new signings so far. Sheffield have one that's off the top of my head, but of a new signing, that's a impressive CV. Like that many games in the Finnish Liga. You've got KHL experience with Jokerit, who Clan fans will know well after seeing them play live. A good year in the French top league with Grenoble. Also Champions Hockey League experience. It's a very, very good looking side, and I would expect him to be on the top D pair. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about Grenoble, we had this conversation the other day about what the hell that team name is. The Grenoble Wolf Burners, I think it comes up to, or something like that in the translation. But yeah, that CV as a whole in his native Finland and branching out where it was is a real statement of intent. I mean, we've talked. There's been a lot of talking. We've talked personally about salaries and budget for the clan since the ownership transition. This seems like it's why don't we just go and sign a top player on the market? What's the restrictions for us to just sign one of the top guys in the market? But
It's,
yeah,
it's
I'm buzzing.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely different. Over the previous years, maybe not counting last season, but it feels like in seasons past, you usually don't see the clan going to these top leagues and just finding a player they want and saying, "Oh yeah, we'll have him. We'll give you the wages you want." It feels like very much we were always playing second fiddle to what was left after the rest of the teams had all had their pickings, and we were just trying to find the sort of the hidden gems that we could pick up. But this definitely feels like a very positive one. It's like we feel as well like we've got our guy and we've got him early, which is it's a good feeling.
Definitely. I mean, if that's a hint of what's to come in terms of the players we're bringing in that aren't re-signings are going to be imports from mainland Europe or further afield, then we'll take that. It's definitely a good statement of intent. Only 28 as well. It's not like we've got a twilight player. I think everyone thinking back to Simon Dupuis, you go, well, I
Yeah.
remember him from playing at Pittsburgh back in the day, but also he was just playing at Nottingham the season before. So not oh how the mighty have fallen, but oh how the mighty have ended up here. So not in this case. A good age, just off the back of a really top year in France. The plus minus stat as you've seen on the screen, just keeping the puck out of your net when you're on the ice. I mean, that's such a positive thing for the rest of the guys when you're on the ice. Your D partner, your goaltender, give your goaltender some respite, and also the forwards being allowed to just play an attack. It's a massive plus for the team.
I think it's good to see like 22 points in the French league as well. It shows that maybe in like when he's playing in Finland and stuff like that, he was probably as playing as domestic player on your sort of lower D pairs, but when he moves across to a league like France, he may be playing higher up, and he shows that he can have a more offensive side to his game as well. Obviously, the Finnish are known for their very responsible, dependable, sort of stay-at-home defensive style, but it shows that he does have that offensive side that he can add to his game as well. It's a comparable league to us, so I'd like to hope that we maybe get a similar return. Very good at keeping the puck out of his net, can also chip in on offense when required as well.
Yes, definitely. So long may this hype of brilliant signings continue. Let's talk a wee bit about rumours, shall we? Everybody's favourite. You need a wee bit of refresh in your Twitter feed. You got the notifications on for certain rumours pages on Twitter. One of the main ones linked with the clan, Johan Matson, goaltender. As we said about CVs, Cal, again,
that's about as good as it goes.
Yes, I mean, like I've got, for a 34-year-old goaltender, and again, you can say 34, and I've already said it in this podcast already about the age, but with goaltenders, it's different to position. Goaltenders, you can get at least another few years out of goaltenders in the mid-30s. You see goalies go until very late in the game, but 20 appearances in the DEL, 81 in the KHL, 105 in the Swedish Hockey League, 23 appearances in the Champions Hockey League. Thinking back all the way to the start of his career, a U20 World Champs medal with the gold medal with Sweden, won the SHL, won the Champions Hockey League, even recently in the KHL in the playoffs. I mean, if we're talking about how good it was to make the playoffs, he had the best goals against average and save percentage in the playoff run when he was in the KHL. That's just
runner-up in Germany as well. The man
stats just never end.
Because that's a very, very good pedigree of player. Question for me, I would say, is credibility of this rumor. It did appear out of nowhere. However, it's obviously a question: will Clan be able to pay the wages? We do know for a fact that he won't be returning to Adler Mannheim, as they have announced the signing of Jake Hildebrandt from Berlin. So he does not have the starting goaltender spot in Mannheim anymore. That did add a bit of fuel to the fire, I suppose. So, I mean, I would absolutely love for that to be my starting goaltender. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the elephant in the room of goaltending so far is that obviously Liam Sully has re-signed with the Clan, and it was announced that Sami Aitakali would be leaving. Um, there's been a lot of sadness about Sami not returning to the Clan next season. For me, if the Clan were to announce their signing, I think the sadness definitely dissipates and the joy will arrive because it. I don't want to say because it'd be really rude to say it's not Sami, it's Sami but better, but Sami being the player he was to the Clan, he had injury issues. I mean, but when he was on his game, he was locked in, and I can see why he got into the hearts of so many Clan fans. Obviously, the goalie and the penalty shootout that takes the playoff weekend, there is attachment there, but this is the duality of the game is that you want to be, you know, drawn in by the players in your team, but also we're only really going to be offered players really 1 year contracts, and for the best part of we can't really make long term, commitments to players, but also it gives you the option to be fluid with your long term roster slots because can you find better on the market? So it is a strange one, Cal. What's your take on the kind of Sammy departure and if this were to be the replacement?
Yeah, as I say, it's like when Sami Aitakaliu was really on his game, he was on his game. That final stretch into the playoffs, he did grind us out a lot of those wins that we got in that final run. So losing him is it naturally it doesn't feel great. That's for sure. I think a good part of the blame has been put in possibly the wrong places, and I feel like, I mean, everyone's read the post that he made on social media about him leaving. He said that he wants to come back, but we don't know the full picture. As the fans, we don't know the full picture. He may have wanted to come back, and the club just weren't willing to meet his demands. It goes both ways. We don't know the full picture there. It sucks, but that's business. That's the hockey business. We know we've got Soulier back, and we expect that he'll be the sort of the backup import netty. If Matson is the one that is coming in, I mean, obviously any new goalie, any new player is a risk, but with a CV and a pedigree like that, I think he'll do the talking on the ice, and I'd very much like to see that one.
Let's stick with Liam Sully then, because as we've said, he is the import goaltender we have signed so far. Same with Sammy in the way that he managed to, not managed to, is probably not the right word, but he found his way into the hearts of a lot of the Clan faithful. A player that, when he was having good games, looked like a really solid goaltender, really just starting to make his kind of first leap away from North American, college hockey, collegiate level hockey. After a short stint in the East Coast League, everybody's favorite. But for me, again, where he was good, he was really good, and in those games where he wasn't on, he could have said it maybe was he won a couple back, or the game just got away from the Clan as a whole. It's very difficult to tell how high the bar is with Soulier, but you still want to bank on having another import goaltender there for sure. I don't think he was. When you talk about the risk of a new keeper coming in, if it would be Matson, he would feel a bit less worried about that. If you were to tell me that Sule is going to be your starting goaltender for 80% of the season, it wouldn't fill me with as much, confidence as if you told me that Matson was going to do the same, or even if Sammy was in that case, because the upside was so good, but the downside wasn't too much to really find a baseline for his performances.
Yeah, I feel when he came in originally, it was very hard to tell and get a gauge on what he was going to be like. His first game, he was thrown straight into Manchester away in the storm shelter. And I thought personally, I watched that game via the webcast. Tyler Hinnom scored a hat trick of like virtually the same goal where he was allowed to skate he skated into the crease 3 times unopposed and scored 3 of the exact same goal. And a lot of people blamed Soulier for that, and I was very much on the fence on how I felt about it. It wasn't his fault, in my opinion. And then he kind of got into a bit more form as we went on. We won a few games. I thought he was still a bit shaky with his rebound control. That's always been something I spotted all throughout the games he played. And if he could improve on that, I think we have a good goalie there. But yeah, as you say, the good also comes with a bad. And when we had a bad game, we had a stinker.
Sheffield away.
I was there for that one in Sheffield. That was not a fun watch. But as I say, it's not for a lack of trying. It's just I feel he went from NCAA, then he went to the East Coast, didn't play a huge amount before coming over to Europe, and that's quite a big transition, especially for goalies to make. You've got the different ice pads and sheets over here are a lot bigger, or in some cases smaller if you're Manchester, and it's a lot of adjustment to get used to. So it'll be interesting to see if he is your backup netminder. I think we might see the better of him going forward, especially in that case. I think a full preseason on our ice will do him a world of good. It just comes down to who's the starter in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. We're going to have to wait and see if there is any truth in the Matson talk, and if not, who will it be? Also, is the other conversation is who's going to be your Brit goaltender. Obviously, with Lucas Bryan leaving the club, if you're going to have 2 import goaltenders, you're going to need to bench or scratch one of them on the night and have your British goaltender on the bench. A lot of talk maybe leaning towards McGowan making a sort of transition to be still the kind of, I don't want to say placeholder, but when you need to have a Brit in your squad, he is going to have to be that person. I don't think you're going to move anywhere else. You're not going to look for a Warburton or a McLaughlin or anybody like that. I think you're going to stick in house and have a look at baby goalie, which I hate to say because I just hate that nickname as a whole. But I think it would have to be something along those lines. I don't think that he would be ready for a significant portion of Elite League hockey. I know he had a good season with Paisley, but I think that step's quite large if we're talking about goaltenders making the leap from the NCAA to the Elite League, making I'm just talking about if you're talking about Sule being difficult, that transition being difficult, then the leap from SNL with our NIHL for these goaltenders is even more drastic. I mean, we've seen it with the Manchester goaltender that came in the third, fourth game. I think he looked a bit, let's say, shaky. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that just is rude towards British players, but there was when you talk about the drop off, I mean, Manchester goaltender last season was immense. And your Brit backup goaltender is there for a reason. But also, let's discuss the other kind of major point in terms of our British players is that Cade Nielsen, a player that I adore. I bought his playoff jersey from last season. It's difficult to tell because we've talked about Joe and we've talked about Cade, both players that if there was a pathway to keep them at the Clan, I'd do whatever it takes to make it happen. There seems to be a lot more talk discussing Joe leaving than there is Cade. It seems to the Cade has maybe calmed down a little bit. I know there was a whole thing
Yeah.
about Clan retaining rights that was agreed originally. Cade coming back for me would be a really good thing especially when you look at the GB squads in the last game. I know GB's campaign in the World Championship hasn't been spectacular, but you had Cade in the first line of your British national team, and that's the level that you're going to hope to keep projecting them at. You need to keep giving him more challenges at the Clan and giving him different looks with line partners as he progresses and he matures as a player. You're going to keep having to give him responsibility as he continues to grow. But so far, anytime I've seen him, he's been dished some difficult timings, difficult pairings, difficult matchups with opposition on game to game basis, but he handles them really well. So if you can keep him, then I think, as you said, with the pack of players we've got, he should be getting a lot more responsibility this season.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, you see it with GB. He played a lot of a lot in the friendlies, he's in like the exhibition games, and I felt like every time you saw his brother Logan scoring, you always saw him assisting, even if it was other players as well. It is always from Cade Nielsen. So I think I do agree. I think if you're able to retain him, which I suppose if things are quieting down, there was a lot of rumors that people were looking at buying it as rights, but it's kind of quieting down a bit, which kind of makes you think that perhaps they aren't willing to match either Clan or whatever the imaginary figure is that we're making up for his rights, knowing the Elite League. You got to imagine if Clan could retain him, that they would finally, hopefully, give him a bit of a chance. It'll be a lot of a different dynamic. He's not under his dad anymore. That's always a relationship which is probably going to be different from most situations. Not saying that there would be any like special treatment or anything like that, but it's always going to be a little bit different from your usual player-coach relationship. So I'd definitely be interested to see what it'd be like under a coach that isn't his dad, given a bit more responsibility. I mean, I thought when he played on the second line with Sidorov for the brief moment of time, I thought was some of the best hockey he played all season. I think he picked up I think it was a goal and then like 3 assists in the space of like 2 games or something, like 2 or 3 games, and it was like, oh, this is great, this is finally it. And then he kind of got shuffled about the lineups again, and it's like, well, we're back to square one again. So I feel like give him a chance and actually let him run with it for once.
Definitely. I mean, as I've said, I'm a Cade fanboy. I'm not going to lie to you. I do like his upside. I think with that extra responsibility, you will bring out the best in him. As you said, that pairing with Sidorov, that was exactly the responsibility. Play him alongside your club captain. You know, a guy who leads by example. If you can get someone that's as hungry as Cade to play alongside the guy that's setting the tempo, then he could have a massive, massive season for the Clan. I suppose the other Brit that has been talked about potentially and rumoured with the Clan is Cole Shudra. I'm on the fence with Cole Shudra. It's strange because I feel like when you've got Robert Dowd on the Steelers, it's like everything else is like the depth chart is Dowd and then everybody else from a Brit standpoint. But
You've
I
got your
suppose,
benchmark.
yeah, it's very disrespectful for me to say anything that, you know, when you are comparing with Robert Dowd. But a player that, I mean, the Shudra name in the league, you know, there's that responsibility as well with him. And you talk about Cade, there's definitely that responsibility of your dad was here, or you know, so there is that extra weight on the shoulders. a break away from down south hockey. I don't know if you're the rivalry with Panthers and just being a part of the Steelers organization. It might be something like a move up here where the organization or the market size is still good. I mean, in compared to down south,
Yeah,
it might be the making of a player like Cole Shudra.
we know that he can play as well. I mean, you look at his stats over the years. He had 113 points in the NHL with Leeds. There's absolutely a player in there. He then played full season after that with Sheffield. I believe that was the Grand Slam year as well. 20 points in 52 games. That's nothing to shake at. I think that's probably more than all of our Brit forwards. I want to say. I don't think any of our Brit forwards had over 20. Maybe Lakovic. Um, and he's versatile as well. He can play defense. He can play as a forward. So I think if you could coax him into a return to form and get him back to the way he was during that Grand Slam season with Sheffield, if he was to come to Clan, obviously, I wouldn't say no. But also, it does depend what happens with the rest of our Brits. If you're keeping Cade and you get a Brit backup keeper, do you just play those five Brits and go with 6 import D? That is also an option that I feel that hasn't been brought up as much. You do only need the 5. We do have a couple of the NIHL guys. You've got Caruth who has links. We've got Torren as well now. So you've got versatility. Sorry, we don't seem to use it though. We never really had the chance to use it. I suppose things are a bit up in the air right now with Solway, especially. We're not really sure what's happening with that situation. It's kind of gone quiet as of late. So there could be a lot of those guys who are going to be free who may want to just come and train with the clan. Some of them have been training with the clan for a while. So there's a bit of versatility there. But I definitely wouldn't say no to Shudra, especially if you can get him to find his form again. That I wouldn't say no.
Definitely. Ifs, buts, and maybes. You know, this is the thing with this rumours section that we've found ourselves in. This is the great part of the silliness of off season is anything can happen, and it honestly feels like with Clan anything possibly could happen.
Could happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. We just need to wait and see. I mean, this is as of now, Wednesday, the 20th of May. This is the Clan signings and major rumours really discussed. It's just up to the Clan to decide what next episode's going to be like, Cal. It could be one where we're sitting here and Ovi has decided to rock up in Glasgow for a season, light up the league and then retire. Or it's Cade re-signing, you know, to take some Del 2 forwards, you know, or something like that. So it's very much in the Clan's hands as to what happens in the next episode. But as far as we are concerned, I think this is the end of our first episode, Cal. The sun has slowly decided to fade. The summer nights are here, but just fading as we reach to about 9:30 at night. But our first episode. Thank you very much for joining me, Cal.
Yeah, of course. It's looking forward to this, and things are pretty happy in the Clan camp at the moment. So long may it continue.
Definitely. I think what you would maybe have to wait and see for is ranty episodes of the 1T Talk Show, because that could get a bit. I'm worried about that, Cal. I'm worried about that.
We are prone for a good rant between us. That's for sure. There's many a hockey night where we have left Braehead Arena in a rather ranty mood. So
yeah, we'll wait and see if the Clan pulls that ranty mood out of us in the off season and definitely season ahead. But as of now, well done, Clan. So far, so good. And next episode, we'll have another roundup as to comings and goings as they happen. But thank you for joining us on our premiere episode of the 1T Talk Show. And until next time, thank you very much. See you later.